Good afternoon. I'm Jody Lown, and I am with the Autism Society. Every quarter, we have a family forum where we invite speakers to come and hopefully provide you with great resources and good information. Today, we have Ms. Jill Yates, and she is with Pivot Counseling, and she is a licensed clinical social worker. So she's going to tell us a little bit about our mental health, which is very important. So, Ms. Jill, you ready?
I'm ready. Hi, and thank you so much for having me. This is really exciting that I have an opportunity to maybe meet with a few people and share some information or tips that I'm able to share with my clients that they found helpful in both managing stress and dealing with really trauma. And trauma can even come in the form of negative experiences that we have throughout life, not having resolved those negative experiences, and now affecting our current reactions to experiences that are somehow associated to those earlier events, if that makes sense. And I'll get into it a little bit more. But I'm going to start off with just telling a little bit about myself. I've been a licensed clinical social worker for about 20 years. My practice is Pivot Counseling and Consulting. We're located in Park Lafayette, which is, I like to tell people, near Caroline's Cookies, because that's my favorite cookie store. So my practice consists of 3 therapists at this time. I'm the owner, and we have Elise, who works primarily with children and women. And then we also have Julia, who is EMDR trained as well. I'm EMDR trained and certified. And she works with children and adults as well. So a lot of the population that I serve is centered around high anxiety, trauma, and recovery from addiction. However, because of those areas, and because we're all affected in one way or another by one of those 3 things, whether it be ourselves, our children, or our loved ones, finding ways to cope and manage stress is really, really important. So I'm going to share a few things, and if I seem a little bit nervous, it's only because I am. So just bear with me. And if I'm breathing or taking deep breaths, it's because I try and use the same skills that I teach people to use, and just being okay and being grounded. Because really the goal in the clients that I work with and that I'm hoping to share with you today is just being more okay most of the time. So I will begin with something that I suggest to people who do have really high anxiety. And one thing that I will go over with people when they come to me is like, if this is baseline right here, your baseline where you're most functional or doing most okay, it seems that the people that I tend to work with, or the people that need support or help in managing that anxiety, tend to be up here, right? And if you're up here, this is maybe a 5 and this is a 7 and here's a 10. And a 10 is where it's like maybe failure to cope or anxiety attack, or everything just seems really overwhelming. And so for that reason, you can't think straight, or you can't get things done in the way that you typically would. What we really want to do is, if you're up here, we want to get you back down here where it's you've got more room between here and here. And so what are ways that we can do that? Because by the time that you ask for help, if you're all the way up here, some of these exercises aren't going to be very helpful. Like, you have surpassed the point where deep breathing or some of the things that I'm going to share with you can really do much good. So if we address this area and you practice some of those skills throughout the day, it will help you to come down just a little bit more. So you'll have more room to reach out for support or do something to prevent the escalation. One of the things that I often suggest, it's actually from DBT, which is something that is used for people typically with personality disturbances, and it consists of life skills. And I'm just going to touch on that real quick, because what we typically find is, in growing up, we develop coping skills. And if we're growing up in a family that is not able to offer the nurturing or the guidance or consistency or support, safety that we need, sometimes those coping skills, while they're effective in childhood, become problematic later in life. And so unlearning them and relearning new coping skills can be some of the work that we do. That being said, some of those coping skills that are no longer working are actually what contribute to what we know as personality disturbances. And you might be familiar with that, something that we hear often that is, I don't know if overdiagnosed is the word, but definitely over assessed, is narcissism. Or borderline personality disorder. And while when we hear those words, it's usually like, whoa, really what we're looking at is just coping skills that are no longer working. And one of the things that can be helpful in reducing anxiety that is often experienced when we're trying to cope with coping skills that no longer work is a little trick with ice water, just a bowl of cold water. Actually, it's a bowl of cold water. But I always think, and this is just something about me, that if something works, if something's good, then like I want to make it a little bit better. And so if you have a bowl of cold water, or if you want to put some ice in it, that's fine too, and you put your face in this bowl of cold water, you will be inclined to pull it out more so than if you were just in lukewarm water or under water in a pool. But if you put your face in this bowl of cold water for 30 to 60 seconds, what it does is it activates the diver's response. And what that means is it kind of tricks your body into thinking that it's drowning. So activating the parasympathetic nervous response. And what that means is everything is going to start to slow down in order to conserve energy. And when that happens, it offers a calming effect, right? Everything is trying to preserve energy, and so you feel a little bit calmer. The same thing can be said with running around the corner really fast. Like you can go outside and run around the block really fast as you can. And again, what that does is you get to a point where it's just like, right? But your body is slowing down to preserve energy. And again, it enacts basically a calming response, which can be really helpful. Something else I do, I'm not sure. Well, I mentioned EMDR. I don't think Jody had mentioned that I'm certified with EMDRIA, which is EMDR-IA, the International Association, as a certified EMDR therapist. And EMDR is used historically, what most people are familiar with is to reprocess traumatic memories, so that if there's a memory or experiences that you had earlier in life that hold a charge, for instance, like an emotional charge, or when you have an experience now, there's a feeling in your body, and you know that what you're feeling isn't necessarily related to the experience that you're having now. It must be more historical. It's like I'm overreacting, and I know what's happening isn't about today. It's about all the times before that it may have happened. What we do with EMDR is we're trying to neutralize this original experience. And so what happens is we can look back on the experience without reliving the experience. It's now used for just about everything. I mean, even everyday anxiety, EMDR has been found to be effective for. Something that we do with EMDR is prior to the reprocessing, there is something called resourcing. And resourcing is something that we use in order to strengthen the foundation, basically, to draw on the positive coping that you have or give you additional coping skills. And that is something that I typically do with clients and sometimes in groups. And again, the purpose is really just to bring you down just a little bit, to give you another tool to put in your toolbox. I'm not sure how we are on time, so I don't know if it would be helpful to do an exercise with that, or you want to do that? Okay. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do something with you now that you can use at any time. And there's actually, there's many different options, many different types of resourcing. And there's a book called Tapping In, actually, that offers lots and lots of different templates, if you will. So what we'll do is I'm going to ask you to get comfortable. Maybe if you're sitting with your legs crossed, uncross your legs or sink into the pillows that are surrounding you and just kind of take a moment. The exercise that I'm going to do today is called Calm Place. And what I'm going to ask you to do once you're situated and comfortable is to imagine a place that's calming, relaxing, that you can be at ease. And some people will think, oh, the beach. We go to the beach every year. But what I'm going to suggest you do actually is instead of using a family vacation spot or a place where you have happy memories, I'm going to ask you to imagine a place that's calming. So it might be the beach, but can you go to the beach on the other coast? If it's the Pacific Ocean, can you create a space on the East Coast? Just using your imagination. Maybe there's a cabin in the woods that sounds really soothing and comforting. And just take a minute in your mind and draw on that. Kind of look around. Notice the different parts that make this place beautiful, calming, peaceful. Notice the colors, if you will. Notice the geography or the terrain. Are there trees? Are there sand? Are there mountains? What color is the water? Notice the temperature on your skin. Is it fall, spring, winter, or summer? Is the sun shining? I want you to take a moment just to get in touch with all the different parts that make this place so calming for you. There's sand. Maybe imagine digging your toes into that sand. How does that feel? There's wildlife or the birds singing. And as you do this, I want you to start tapping. And what I'm going to ask you to do is you can use both hands and maybe one on each knee and just gently tap slowly. Just 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And if you'll just do that for a moment, as again you notice all the parts of this place that make it so calming, so comfortable for you. You can stop tapping. And again, I want you to just kind of look around and notice. And if you were sitting here in the office with me, I would ask you to tell me a little bit about the things that you're noticing. What are the colors that you see? What is the temperature? Is there a breeze? And as you do that, I want you to again start tapping. Slowly. Look around. You're sitting in a chair. Notice the support of that chair. Up. Take a deep breath. Again, just notice. What I want to invite you to do as well is notice how you're feeling. Notice your body, even starting at the top of your head and moving down to the tip of your toes. But notice what that feels like. Notice any emotions that are coming up. And in noticing your body and noticing any emotions you might be feeling, go back to that calm place and just try and bring those together, bring all of it together. And again, begin tapping, if you will. And again, stop tapping. And now I want you to kind of move into your body and just notice again, what does that feel like? Are you feeling a sense of calm? Are you feeling a little bit more relaxed? What I sometimes hear clients say is it's kind of a freedom, like an absence maybe of tension. And maybe if you're used to feeling anxious and you're used to feeling tension, noticing an absence of that is the best you can do in this moment. And that's really good. I mean, that's a really good place to be. So again, just relax, take another deep breath, and we're going to do that one more time where I ask you to really just notice what your body may be telling you right now or any sensations as you go back to that calming place. Tap. I usually like to say at this point, you're doing a good job. And you're definitely doing it right because there's no right or wrong way to do this. And so now, again, if you would just notice how you're feeling, I'm going to ask you to do one more thing. I'm going to ask you to think of a word that you can associate with this experience. It can be any word. It can be a buzzword that has some association to this experience or this place that you've chosen. It can be a word that has meaning to you, but just think of a word. Take a moment to do that. And the next thing I'm going to ask you to do is to bring it all together. Bring this experience and the feelings that you're noticing, I'm hoping for you, relaxation in your body, just that sense of ease. I want you to hold that together with this word. And what I'll sometimes suggest is like a marquee or a billboard. Think of that word in this way. And holding all of those things together, we're going to tap again. And if you choose, you can do that once more. And I like to do it sometimes a couple of times just to really strengthen the association. For the sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and move on. And what I'm going to ask you to do now is I'm going to ask you to think of a scenario that is maybe just annoying, right? Or creates a little bit of distress. And so maybe on a scale of 0 to 10, if you could think of something that's maybe a 3. And what I like to suggest is playing that reel through in your head. So if it's someone pulling out in front of you in traffic, play that reel through in your head of what that's like. And when you get to the worst part, so the part that spikes up to a 3 in this situation, I want you to think of the word that you chose. So if you could do that, and I know it takes a little bit of time. Sometimes I'll give people a minute or two to do that. But if you could play that reel through and think of the word. My hope for you is that when you thought of the word, you noticed a shift. You noticed that as you thought through that experience and as you had maybe a slight spike in anxiety or, oh, that's the bad part, when you thought the word, you noticed being able to easily access that sense of ease. And that's resourcing, basically. I mean, that was kind of a quick script in resourcing, what we do prior to EMDR. And really, one of the things that I try and share with people is it's not about finding one thing that works for you. It's about having a willingness to just try a little bit of everything. And then deciding what works best. Something else that I think is a huge game changer for people, and let me just ask, how much time do we have? Are we okay? Okay. One thing that I think can be a huge game changer is gratitude journaling. But I like to expand on that a little bit because gratitude journaling is really helpful. And I know we hear about it all the time, but I think it can be so profound in the change that, in the benefits of it. And I'm going to explain a couple of things to you. With the two parts of it are, one, with gratitude journaling, it's the idea is to, we all have bad things that happen, or we all have major stressors in our life that sometimes are bigger than others, right? And sometimes those negative, those stressors, those are histories or unresolved traumas, even for that matter, can be like this. You know, life can just feel really overwhelming. And so the purpose of a gratitude journal is not, these things aren't going to go away. And it would be dismissive to even think that they might, right? Because for some people, they're really big. Like the stressors are all day, every day. And I know that if you have a child that has disabilities or is sick or has medical issues ongoing, that stress can be really, gosh, I want to use the word invasive. I don't know why that's coming to mind, but it can kind of shadow everything, right? It can be like, I'm speaking to the choir. I'm singing to the choir. Maybe I don't have to describe it or define it because you already know. But what we really want to do is we want to, while acknowledging that those stressors or whatever it happens to be for us that's really big, we just want to replace it with a more conscious awareness of the things in our life that are working or that we can be grateful for. And I suggest really just spending some time with this practice. And the reason being is that it can be really easy to think, okay, like I'm grateful for warm water, or like I'm grateful for family and friends, or I'm grateful for my faith. And I think sometimes it can be, the experience can be in really digging a little bit deeper. Like, I am grateful for my health. And I'm also really grateful for the health of my friends and family. I'm grateful for the warmth of the sun that I feel on my skin, because for me, it just helps me feel alive. Um, I'm grateful for so many things. I'm grateful for my beautiful children, right? And the love and laughter, right? And I'll even draw on experiences when I'm writing in my own gratitude journal, just kind of bringing that to the forefront. If my son and I laughed really hard the night before, I might make a note of that and what it was about. I suggest digging really deep because it makes it more of a personal experience versus, and again, anything is helpful, but versus friends, family, and my work, right? I mean, that kind of gets away from us. The second part of gratitude journaling that I think can be really, really helpful is, in a world that feels really overwhelming and sometimes not safe or very friendly, I think it can be really helpful at the end of the day to write down the things or the events in our day that felt really good or that were affirming or where we got to experience the kindness of others. And notice that the world can be a kind, friendly place to both us and our children and the people that we love. And so if somebody opened the door for me, or if somebody offered a compliment, or if, I don't know, sometimes we have to look for the smallest things, and sometimes it's getting an unexpected card in the mail, if that still happens. And when it does, if you've had the experience, or if you're in my age group, you know that can be really nice. Because everything seems to be electronic now. So I encourage doing that as well. And what happens is, if I've had a really stressful week and I look back on the week and it's just kind of like, I don't know, it's just been a really rough week. What this kind of awareness does is, for instance, let me just say this. If on Monday you ask me, was there anything good that happened in your day? And I'm having a really troublesome week, or my marriage is falling apart, or my child is ill, I'm probably not going to recall the small things. And the whole week might be a wash. What this allows is, it allows me to be consciously aware of, yes, today good things happened. Monday, good things happened. Tuesday, good things happened. And so I start to notice that I'm no longer having bad days, but that sometimes bad things happen, or sometimes my emotions feel really big, but there's still good in the world. And so again, all of those things that are right here when we're really overwhelmed and we feel like we don't have the support that we need are still there, but our conscious awareness becomes more of, or at least has room to expand on, the idea that the world is a safe place, or that good things do happen, or that there are really wonderful things in my life. So having said that, I hope some of that was helpful. I know that there's going to be an opportunity for some questions, and I can certainly circle back if there aren't any questions, or there's a few questions and we have more time. I'm happy to maybe offer a little bit more after. So are there any questions or anything that you'd like to ask about what we've done or otherwise?
What services do you provide that would help an autistic individual, and what ages of clients do you typically see?
So I see 18 and over. The other therapists in my practice, Elise and Julia, both see children as early as age, I believe, 5. Um, they they offer therapy for children with all sorts of different issues, for that matter, whether autistic or not, whether the issues are behavioral or biological. We don't. I'm trying to think as far as the therapists, Julia and Elise, are not certified in play therapy. However, that is a part of bringing aspects of play therapy is a piece of the work that they do with kiddos. Sometimes that involves sand therapy. Of course, if you have a child that has sensory issues, that's not going to be very appropriate. And so music might be more appropriate or more helpful. I know that we have the opportunity today to be in a place that does offer music therapy. And so I know there's really wonderful resources in the community. I guess to answer that question, part of it might be because I work primarily with adults, I might be more in a position to provide support to mothers or siblings of individuals that have challenges of any kind, because as family members, obviously, we're affected by that. And then Julia and Elise would probably be most appropriate in working with the children. And again, and maybe I'm struggling through part of that too, is because I'm trying to conceptualize in my mind what that might look like. But since every individual is so very different, it would be specific to that individual. So what I can say is that if you have any questions specific to your child and the services that we offer, I would really, really ask that you give us a call, and I can put you in touch with one of the therapists if it is in fact regarding services for a child, or if it's for yourself, and you'd like to speak with me or you have any questions. I am more than happy to set aside some time so that I can answer those questions for you and see what kind of fit we might be for your family.
Explain to our viewers a little bit more about what EDMR is, and if they were to pursue that, what's some expectations?
Okay, and thank you. I'm so glad you asked that question. It's EMDR, and I used the I said that, but I didn't explain myself. It's eye movement desensitization. I'm sorry about that, and reprocessing, and that's what EMDR stands for. EMDR, the way I explain it, kind of the short version is, and I kind of touched on this earlier, but it's like a general example I'll use is that if you, say, grow up in an environment where dad yells all the time, right? And there's some profound experiences that you have in there. Maybe there's some fear associated with it, or maybe you never know when he's going to react or when he's going to yell. You have these earlier experiences, and as a way of coping, you might become hypervigilant in reading people, or you might become anxious. There might be some fear involved in that. And with EMDR, when we speak of EMDR, we look at the experience and then we consider these portals, right? That's what we call it. And the portals consist of like the emotions we felt at that time, maybe any images associated with the experience, where that showed up in our body, whether it was anxiety or fear. Was it a knot in your stomach? What else am I thinking? The portals are the different elements of that memory, and the memory holds a charge, right? Because it was traumatic in nature. And I'm using this, but for you, it might be something like, it might be a car accident. It might be something very, I don't know, like that we don't typically refer to as traumatic, because like maybe dad, you didn't have a father that yelled. Maybe you had very loving parents, but at school you just didn't feel safe and you didn't know why. There's lots of different scenarios, but for the sake of this one, we're going to use yelling. So what happens as we go through life, and when we have experiences where we hear someone yelling, maybe we notice that we get really activated, and they're not even yelling at us, but we notice some anxiety, or we notice kind of a shift in our own level of being able to remain grounded. And as you have these experiences, you might even start to notice that, like, my reaction is not proportionate to what's happening here and now. Like, this has got to be about something in the past. And I think we've all probably, as moms, especially with kids, had reactions where it's like, okay, what just happened now? Like, my reaction was not just about what just happened now. It might be about what happened in the past. It might be about the fact that I'm completely overwhelmed and I don't have the capacity to cope in this situation as I would hope to, right? So with EMDR, what we want to do is we want to reprocess this memory. And the idea is that these memories, it's usually not just one, kind of get stuck. And so I use the analogy of it's frozen. And with EMDR, we use bilateral stimulation. The wonderful part about EMDR is that the focus is really on how this memory shows up in your body. So you don't have to necessarily relive the memory, or you don't have to know all the different parts of the traumatic experience, which you normally won't, because trauma is not stored chronologically. It's usually in fragments. There's parts of the memory that you remember and there's parts that you don't, and it doesn't really make sense. But so what we're doing is we're kind of thawing this out. And in doing so, we empty these portals. And what that means is that you have the memory, but it no longer holds the charge, right? And so, and the portals are emptied. So the associations that you might have in the here and now that bring you back to that reactive state or back to that earlier experience no longer exist. So you can hear someone yelling today and you might think, wow, like that guy's a jerk. Or you might think, okay, what's going on with him? But you don't relive your earlier experiences based on being reminded or being kind of placed in a situation that brought you back to your earlier trauma, for that matter. As I said, it can be used for anxiety. It can be used for so many things. It can be used for specific big traumatic events, right? And those are the things that we normally think of: hurricanes, natural disasters, assaults, car accidents. Or it can be used for everyday stressors or anxiety or pretty much you name it. And EMDR has been effective in just allowing people a sense of freedom from kind of being like held hostage by our earlier experiences or our coping that's no longer working for us. So I hope that was helpful. I know I kind of jumped around a little bit.
Would you say that EMDR would be useful for someone who is limited verbally or non-speaking?
Yes. And the reason being is that kind of like the resourcing that I did here, you can be there and I can be here and you can have the experience. With EMDR, as I said, it's not necessary for you to tell me all of the parts of what happened. If I can ask you, hey, can you draw on that memory or that experience? Can you remember what it felt like when you were there, right? And I'm going to get curious about that. There is a belief system associated with EMDR, and I failed to mention that as far as the portals. Like, sometimes our experiences lend to a belief system that we adopt, and that can be that I'm not worthy, right? If somebody, if our upbringing or an experience, or I'm not safe, I'll use that. I know I'm kind of going back to a scenario that not everyone can relate to. And that's the hard part, right? Because EMDR can be used for so many things. But getting back to the question, if there's an associated belief system, we do work with that. I mean, that's one of the 7 questions we ask when preparing to do the reprocessing. And the reprocessing uses the bilateral stimulation. That can be the light, that can be the tapping. It can be me sitting across from you and moving my fingers. But I do check in between sets to see what you're noticing, because I want to notice what's showing up in your body, what your experience is. And usually people give me feedback at that time. And that's really what I'm trying to keep you on the playing field. I'm noticing if your memories are going off into another direction and we need to bring you back, or if we need to move, shift focus and go into something else that's coming up for you. So the verbal aspect can be helpful because it helps me in the experience with you, basically, in getting to what we're hoping for, to be some sort of resolution. But it's not absolutely necessary. Me being able to ask you if you notice, if you can just notice that feeling in your body, that's a big piece of it. So again, it's like I'm trying to, of course, I want to educate you and I value the questions that you have. It can be so specific, right? I mean, I can't, it's so hard to generalize EMDR and the work I do because every individual is so very different. And so prior to doing EMDR, I'm getting a really extensive history because I want to know where we have to go for you. I want to know what your limitations are. I want to know what kind of learner you are, right? Because that helps me know how you interpret events or a little bit more about your personal experience. And so, again, it's one of those things where if the answers that I'm giving right now don't feel like you're getting the information that you need to kind of satisfy the answer, please, please, please don't hesitate to reach out because I'm more than happy to listen a little bit more about what your specific situation is and offer any guidance that I might be able to offer. And if I can't help you, I'm also happy to refer you to, someone in town. I might be able to give you some information into someone who can help you, who is specialized in the area that you're looking for. I think that's a big part of what I do too. It's not about bringing people to me. It's about kind of expanding the base of resources and support that's available within the community so that we can all work together because we need each other. So thank you for that question. I appreciate it.
Yeah, last two questions.
Okay.
They're wanting to know, did you mention behavior therapy earlier? Was that mentioned?
Not specifically. What I might draw from that is CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy. And I did mention behavioral. What was I speaking of? I think it was just, maybe it was in the way of our coping and certain behaviors that worked for us at one point, but no longer work for us. And in fact, they're causing problems for us. So it might be in modifying our behavior, but again, probably CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, which is kind of like the vanilla of therapy. It's what you're probably accustomed to if you've ever been to a therapist before. EMDR definitely brings another layer in to the therapeutic experience.
And could you tell our viewers again just where you're located and if you take any insurances, and if you do, which ones?
Yes, thank you for that question. My office is located in Park Lafayette. We are nestled in between Agave Mexican Cantina and Natural Grocers on Kali Saloom and Camellia. We are on the second floor, and it's really nice because we overlook an oak tree, which just kind of creates a really calming, happy environment. We really love our new office. We've been there since December, and that is in Lafayette, kind of right outside of River Ranch. The insurance, so we no longer accept insurance, and part of the reason, there are a number of reasons for that. Client privacy. Diagnosing can be used as a labeling system for some people. And so again, I'm really specific to every individual as far as that goes. But those were part of the reasons that I opted to become a cash paid practice. However, because I did accept insurance at one time, I am out of network with United Health Insurance and Blue Cross Blue Shield. And for some people, if you have, decent out of network benefits, they utilize that. I provide a super bill in those situations. The other thing that, if you have a low deductible or relatively low deductible with your out of network benefits, it can be really helpful and beneficial in kind of satisfying a portion of the cost. Now, that being said, Julia and Elise are not out of network. They are sole cash pay only, and offer sliding scales because we do want mental health services and support services to be available. So again, we ask that if you have any questions as far as it relates to what we can do to support you, we are more than happy to talk to you a little bit more about that. And if for some reason we aren't able to help you, I'm more than happy to refer you to someone who maybe can be more helpful. And I think those were the two questions, right? The insurance and the location. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I can offer about the practice itself. Not that I can think of. I mean, we love working with and supporting people. It's really just something we feel called to do, and going to work every day is not really work for us. It's just something that we love. And so part of that involves, as I said, just being able to support one another. And so if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to call. Will you provide the phone number? Okay, sounds good. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate being here.